Instagram, we are live. YouTube, we are live. Ye Old Faithful Facebook, we are live, I think. Yes, beautiful. Hello, everyone. Welcome. So you may see that I'm in a slightly different, apologies, a slightly different background than usual. I'm coming to you from my bedroom that's in the middle of being redecorated because I'm in my sick bed again. I know, I just got better-ish like a week ago and I'm back in. I had my booster this morning and my body, if like, I don't know, a slightly bad, bit of bacteria or virus or whatever, even so much as sees me and acknowledges my existence, I get ill. It is rough. But, and I'll talk about this later on, that's all about me needing more support, which is one of the shadow aspects we'll go into. But I'm waffling now. Hello. Those of you who are joining us and don't know who I am, my name is Rebecca Burgess, and I'm the creatrix and mother priestess of the Temple of Cornwall. And the temple has been an online temple for about 2 years now, in the very airy, fairy realms of the internet. But apologies, that might happen a couple of times, this talk, as I'm very feverish from the booster at the moment. Yes, but the temple's moving into the physical this year. So brace yourselves for some very fiery yet earthy, lots of emotions, watery energy this year from the temple. Expect a lot, is what I'm saying. So these talks, these temple talks, if you've been a fan of them for a while, you will know that they've changed slightly. So just got a notification on live. I always get that. And it always surprises me every month. Every week. So these talks have changed slightly. As they exist right now, I'm so loving this concept. So every week on like a Monday or a Tuesday, I put a poll, or a couple of polls, on our Instagram stories, and I let you guys kind of vote out what topics you want. So this week it was neck and neck, like 50-50 for the life of a priestess and inner warrior. So this week I've decided to do life of a priestess because that's very much kind of what I'm looking at anew this week in my own personal life and my own personal priestess path. So it felt very potent to talk about it this week. And next week, the next temple talk will be focusing all on the inner warrior. And I better be feeling better by then because I'll have had a week full of like nourishing support and yummy goodness from my community and loved ones. So yes, these talks, they last around 30 minutes to 45 minutes. The first temple talk of every month, so that's the first Friday of every month, there will be a meditation at the end that you can access. But for those of you who are, let me turn the brightness up on this. Apparently that's full brightness. But for those of you who are wanting a guided meditation from last week's, because I was coughing so much, then that is now up on YouTube. It's been there for a couple of days, so you can go and access that whenever you want. That's just there for you to, it shouldn't even be monetized, I don't think, so there shouldn't be adverts on it unless YouTube's being quite naughty. But yeah, so that's the talks. These talks are obviously free because you're here. Hello, welcome. And you can also access these through a replay. On Instagram, it's IGTV. Facebook, it will be just left on the page for you to see and in our Facebook group as well. And YouTube, it will just be kind of re-uploaded as a standalone video. So you can go and enjoy this whenever you want. And there's a whole, if you go to the YouTube channel, there's a whole playlist of temple talks and all the different topics that we've gone over as well. So this week, like I said, is all about the life of a priestess. And that was going to be it. And I say that was going to be it. That's quite a topic anyway to fit into 30 minutes. But alas, that was what was going to be this week's talk. But as I sat here, so this first thing this morning, I went to go get my my booster jab, and I love that. I'm personally very for it, and I kind of forgot how wrecked my body got last time from it. And when I say that, I don't mean that in like an inflammatory, putting you off. I just mean I got quite ill from it last time, and I've had, I think it's Moderna this time as my booster, so it's new to me. I'm feeling rough AF. So I thought this is actually perfect. I can come to you in the truth of a priestess rather than showing you, usually I have the temple as my background and the sacred flames burning, and I look infinitely less feverish than this. If you're on Instagram, I've saved you the horrors and put a lovely filter on. Facebook and YouTube, you've just got my dinky ring light because my other one broke. I've not replaced it yet. But yeah, so I look infinitely less feverish and tired than I currently do. And it's all, audio's usually somewhat perfect. The lighting's better. Everything's kind of curated for your pleasure. But for this week, I thought, no, I want it to be curated to what I need. I want to offer you the truth of what it means to walk a priestess path in this day and age anyway. And part of that is getting sick and still having to kind of show up. Not having to is not a word or a phrase that we use on the priestess path. Choosing to show up even when we're not at our best. So this was, very, like I said, potent for me to talk about, because I've been last year, like this time last year, I was beginning to get really burnt out. I'd put a lot on myself with the temple, and I really was not accepting help from anyone. I was being very polite when help was offered, and secretly I was going, oh God, I wish I could accept your offer of doing the healing live stream for me, or whatever people wanted to do. But in my head, I had this thought of, no, I've created this temple. I've made myself the mother priestess. I can't be seen to be vulnerable, which is a little tosh. I'm just going to put that out there now. That was a lot to put on myself and anybody. And I'm sure we all put pressure on ourselves in that way. And this was, coming to you in my sickness is coming to you in my truth, which the priestess path is about many things for me. And I'm sure for those of you who are walking the priestess path as well. But truth is, if I had to sum it up in one word, it would either be truth or dedication. Yeah, it'd have to be two words. I couldn't just choose one of those. So yes, I very much wanted to come to my truth. Like I said, I'm supporting myself by being in my bed. I've got the radiator on, because even though my temperature is extraordinarily high, I feel like I'm currently walking through the Antarctic in like a skimpy little bikini, like a little Brazilian bikini. So, so I've got all the heating on. I'm feeling very physically supported. I've taken medicine, so I'm feeling as supported as one can at the moment. So this was the truth that I wanted you to come into with me as the priestess path. We're not always this kind of untouchable, always in touch with the divine, always channeling. We can be, absolutely, but that's not realistic. And the way I approach my spirituality and teaching anything spiritual, so anything through the mystery school here in the temple, is always through a place of, I will teach you the biggest, grandest, most, instantly powerful version of whatever I'm teaching you that I can. But I will also break it down into the smallest and most kind of manageable, accessible thing for you to do. So on those days where you've had your booster and you're feeling a bit naff, you can you can still do your sacred work. You can still do your spiritual work as a priestess. Ooh, another quick disclaimer. Whilst I'm saying priestess, because that's my truth, I'm also talking about priests and priestesses, or whatever sort of suffix. Is that a suffix? Whatever suffix you prefer. So whilst I'm saying priestess, know that I mean every... it's the archetype of the priestess, not the genitalia of the priestess that I'm talking about. Wildly off track there. So, making things accessible to you, because whilst, the big ceremonies and grand rituals are important and magical and mighty powerful, you also need those things that will let you live in dedication. And that's the daily acts of service towards yourself, which we'll get into service in a little bit. Those daily acts of priestessing that you might do to make them more accessible on the days where you're feeling rather rubbish and a bit crap, and you just want to, like me, sit in your sick bed. Just do now. You can do that and still practice your spirituality. So the first thing, like I've not waffled for 10 minutes already, but that's why you come here. You love my waffles. I do also incidentally make really good waffles. like breakfast food waffles. I love them. But anyway, so the first proper thing on my notes that I want to talk to you about is Instagram priestesses versus the real life priestesses. Now, when I say Instagram priestesses, I'm not calling anyone out in particular. I don't have anyone in like that comes to mind when I say that. It's just, I feel like if I say Instagram priestesses, you'll know who I mean. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with just being an Instagram priestess, but it's when you're doing it for the show and the likes and the freebies and sort of the influencer side of things. That I don't know where I sit on that. I'll probably sit nowhere. I'm ambivalent, but that's if you're somebody who wants to start their priestess path or kind of get back onto their priestess path, that can be really intimidating, seeing the women that look nothing like you talking about things that you don't quite understand. They're not using words or phrases that you get. What are we transmuting? Where's this distortion? What distortion? Where's it coming from? What light codes? Like there's so much in like modern day spirituality and priestessing that we can very easily kind of get lost in and start the comparison, the attack of comparison, saying, I'm not on a beach in Costa Rica, all skinny and mini and or whatever, like you're in your head is an Instagram priestess. You're not feeling represented in the social media. And that can really put a lot of people off. And it put me off, not so much the Instagram priestess, but what put me off my priestess path for years. So I believe we are born priestesses. We might not know it originally. And that's where we've got to kind of, it's that remembrance, that journey of remembrance that we all go through, usually through, at least a couple of dark nights of the soul. It's that journey that we go through. But then, so you're born a priestess. It's just that journey of remembering. And once you said, I had kind of clocked this, that was like, oh yeah, I am a priestess. And I was looking at all these different priestess trainings that are available here in the UK, which I'm so glad there's lots. It's amazing. There's so much choice out there for people. But it was almost overwhelming for me at that time because, you'd look at the curriculum and see what they teach you. And for me, and I'm sure most of you, would be like, well, I know that. I already do that. That's not much different from what I do. But how can I call myself a priestess when I've not got the qualification to be a priestess? And that's kind of like where the Instagram versus reality thing comes in as well, because you don't need you can have the guidance of the training, but you don't need a qualification to say that you're a priestess. You are born one. It's when you remember, and when that when that clicks, when that divine kind of information comes in for you, where you're like, all my life lessons have been making me a priestess or remaking me a priestess as well. And the reality of being a priestess is something so much more than whatever you might see on Instagram. So like swimming in lagoons or, foraging every autumn, even though you hate the cold, like, it's something that doesn't fit you. The truth is you are the truth on your priestess path. You are your intuition is the divine guidance you need. So that divine guidance, your truth, might take you towards a mentor or a training program, which is brilliant. I mean, I've linked ours in Instagram. It'll be up after this, but I've linked ours in the bio on Facebook, not bio, description of this, sorry, on Facebook and YouTube. So you can check that out if you want when that reopens. And your truth and intuition might bring you to me in our training program, or it might take you along my journey, which was being self-initiated by the Spirit of Cornwall, by my deities as a priestess. And that might be your truth, and your truth is your power. And I'm sure you hear that a lot. Sorry, look, okay, really cold again with my fever. Your truth is your power, especially, on your whole priestess path, but especially, in your whole life, but especially on your priestess path, because that will be your sort of honing system, your, what do they call it? Your radar, your kind of sat nav. You'll get these blips of like divine guidance, like, ooh, that felt good. Reading, that felt good. I'll go and explore that a bit more. Ooh, I had this dream. And this remembrance came through, and that felt really good. I'm going to follow that. So that's it's kind of getting over the hurdle of any comparison that you might have, or even jealousy as well. That there's something that's been, it's quite prevalent a lot of the time, I would say. Not a lot of the time, that's not fair. That there's, let me get to what I'm saying, and then I can start talking about it. A lot of jealousy amongst women especially women or those in their feminine, on the priestess path. And I'm never quite sure why, because in my head, this has always been the case. When one woman rises, all women rise. There's no fight in it. There's no race. There shouldn't be any, I don't know, bitterness or jealousy or just sort of nastiness towards each other. But there is. And sometimes that's something, whether you experience that from other people or whether you project your own kind of bitterness of self, perhaps, that I'm not really sure where it comes from people, but whatever, where you project your own jealousy onto others by telling them, you can't do this, you're not the first person to do this, whatever it might be. I've had people complain about me to my partner because they didn't like what I was doing. So you've just got to get over it. They're not your tribe, and that's fine. They're not your clan. Move on. So then another part, so once you've kind of gotten over the comparison and jealousy in whatever way that kind of shapes up for you, I've already spoken for 20 minutes, my goodness. We come to what I want to talk about next is devotion and dedication. Now, so just before I come into these lives, I like to sit in silence and just let the spirit of Cornwall kind of talk to me about what it wants me to talk to you about. And it gave me those two words, and immediately my very human monkey brain went, that's the same thing. Devotion, dedication, they're the same thing. And then I was corrected quite beautifully by the spirit of Cornwall. So, it's pretty simple when you look at it anyway. But devotion is that devoting yourself in a loving way. Dedication is the service that you offer, or how you offer up your services, if that makes sense. So the devotion can come in many ways. The devotion to me is my personal priestess path. So what I do to priestess for me and the spirit of Cornwall, sort of privately, what I do just between me and them. And then dedication is what I do publicly. So that's the whole of the temple, that's the healing, that's the trainings, that's the tarot readings, channeling, everything that I offer. That's the dedication. And the dedication is also about showing up daily. And like I spoke about previously, it's showing up daily in whatever way you can. So you can see, I'm in my sick bed feeling rough AF, and I'm still here dedicating myself to bringing this knowledge to you because the spirit of Cornwall wasn't letting up, and that's fine. I am its priestess. I am one of its conduits, one of Cornwall's physical conduits, to offer a bridge between, the earthly existence and the divine existence of Cornwall. I am one of the bridges, one of the pathways there, one of the people to help you remember your own. But anyway, that's a whole different topic. Yes, the dedication is showing up. I host huge, big wedding ceremonies for people, and that's a form of dedication. And also sometimes I just sit, slumped, hunched over, feeling a bit sorry for myself at my altar, and I just light the sacred flame of Cornwall and gaze at it for a few minutes, doing some deep breathing. And sometimes that feels like a lot, but it's just pushing yourself to do, okay, I'll go sit by my altar. What wants to happen now? Nothing or something. And it's letting yourself kind of be swayed by the motions of whomever, whichever deity or energy you're dedicated to. And then for me, and this is like you'll, I'm sure you will find along your own priestess path, it's a very personal journey. Whilst, like I said, Instagram priestesses might all come across the same, or like they're all doing the same thing that you don't want to be doing, but you feel like you ought to because they are. Oh my God. On my personal priestess path at the moment, that this will change throughout, the days, weeks, months, years as a priestess. But at the moment, mine is all about refinding that magic, rekindling that magic, the wild magic that I talk about quite a lot that's here in Cornwall. It's finding that in the daily. So, like today, for example, it's the quiet moments. It was waking up to frost in the fields. It was waking up to birdsong for the first time in quite a while. It was the sun rising over the hills with the frost on the field still. It was all these simple moments of magic, and it's refinding that and kind of instilling that within yourself. And I just wanted to bring this up maybe as inspiration for you. If you wanted, if you feel like you kind of lost touch with magic, even though you're a priestess or on a magical, spiritually priestess path, you can find, I just want to bring this up to show you how personal it can be and should be. No priestess is ever the same, which again is why the kind of jealousy and bitterness thing doesn't really work in theory, because I can priestess the way that I priestess, and you can priestess the way you priestess, and that's beautiful. There's complete magic in how I priestess and complete magic in how you priestess, and that's amazing. The whole gamut of human experience can be felt as a channel for the divine. It's delicious. So finding that that magic on your own personal path as well, really making it something that feels totally blissed out and magical to you. So now I just want to talk about how long we got left. About 10 minutes. We may go over a little bit, but I'll try not to go on too long. And just to kind of round out this temple talk, I want to talk about the shadow aspect of the priestess and kind of what that can become, because I feel like it's, especially if you're just starting this journey, we very quickly get plummeted into the depths of our shadows, because it's something that we need to kind of be, faced with. How can you serve others? How can you hold space for others if you can't recognize your own shadows? And, if not kind of at least accept them. At least, I mean, that's a big job in itself, accepting that if you can't accept your shadows or even kind of create them into something beautiful to see the gift in them, then how can you be expected to hold space for others that might be going through something similar, or that you don't agree with, and you feel the need to let them know, there's not a way to hold space for, if you're unaware of your shadows. At least if you're aware, you can kind of say, if you're holding space in a women's circle for a sister, you can feel whatever trigger, whatever shadow aspect is coming up, hold space for yourself, not having to verbalize it necessarily unless that feels right for you and the group, but just holding space for yourself to feel that, and then finding the gift, accepting it, finding the gift in it, and then moving it into something else if that feels right to you. It might just need accepting. That's all it might be. So the shadow self that you'll find yourself starting in kind of at first, to me, I mean, I'm calling the first 26 years of my life, 27 years of my life, my sort of priestess training. And it was an intense 27 years, 26 years, but I wouldn't change it for the world. And I won't go into the ins and outs because there's no need, but it was quite intense, but beautiful at the same time. So the three shadows I'm going to name were my personal shadows, and how kind of the gift that I found within them, or kind of what I've turned them into, like the opposite of them. And hopefully this will kind of show you perhaps your own shadow, bring that up as a mirror for you, or just let you see how personalized and individualized the experience of a priestess is in truth, in reality. So these are in no apologies. These are in no particular order. So like I think I mentioned before, I was massively burnt out kind of this time last year, just because, I mean, I'd put a lot on myself. And again, I wouldn't change that for the world. I'm very happy with this temple and very happy with where it's going. But I was extremely burnt out to the point that if I had to hold space for somebody else, I'd cry. And that was the moment where I was like, I can't, I don't want to put that on somebody. That's hideous. Imagine that happening to you. You're there trying to talk about your traumas, and this priestess is just crying because of her own. That's not great. So I was like, I need to take a break. So my partner at the time whisked me away to a wood-fired yurt in the middle of the Cornish moors in West Cornwall and just told me to relax. And I'm not one for napping. I was very in my masculine at the time, very much having to be like up at 5 a.m, bed at, 9, work non-stop in between, really pushing myself. And the minute I'd kind of put my luggage away and put my comfy clothes on, I napped. And I napped long and I napped hard and it felt good. So good. So it's that, that whole, apologies, that whole holiday was really helpful in a lot of ways, good and bad. But after being so hideously burnt out, I mean, I can't imagine what like corporate, people who work at corporations, what your burnout feels like, because it was horrible. But that's now I've experienced that kind of shadow aspect of myself, that very masculine or only masculine, pure masculine kind of drive with no feminine rest. Now I've experienced that, I know what it feels like to experience, and I've written here, and this is what the Spirit of Cornwall told me, flourishing fizzy goodness, and chef's kiss, because that sounds delightful. Sounds like a glass of elderflower cordial on a summer's day, and you've just had a cream tea and the birds are singing and there's hydrangeas around you. Oh, that's the kind of energy I can, because I've experienced the burnout, and I'm sure many of you probably have, you can then experience the flourishing fizzy goodness of life, because it's two ends of the same spectrum. You've dipped into one, you can dip into the other now. I hope that makes sense. I'm kind of running on my limit here with my sickness and talking. And then one of my other ones was having no boundaries. Now, this was before I kind of opened the temple. So before I opened the temple, I did some training in Glastonbury to be a sacred celebrant. And that, to me, that was at the time was run by Dawn Kinsella, Mandy and Charlia. And they, all three of them, I love you all so much if you're watching this at any point in the future. You all hold such a dear space in my heart. But that was very much, even though it was a training course to be a sacred celebrant, to me it felt like the final piece of my priestess training. So, my life experience so far, every time I'd go in Glastonbury, more shadows would come up that I'd need to be faced with, that I could then kind of, like I said, either accept the gift within that or kind of turn it into something else, turn it on its head. And I was in a very abusive marriage, kind of at the very beginning of that. Literally after the first weekend in Glastonbury, I left my husband, moved out like a week later. But so I had no boundaries in that, and I was very disempowered, very, beaten down, just, everything you would expect from an abusive marriage. So I had no sense of boundaries. I always felt the need to please and appease others, whether they were my romantic partner or a client or a friend or a family member, whoever it was. I felt the need to kind of preempt their needs, preempt their wants, and very much worry and panic if anything seemed amiss, very much so. And then through the journey of becoming a priestess and, conceiving and birthing the Temple of Cornwall, it's very much been a massive journey of empowerment for me. It's been, because I've experienced that complete lack, I can experience the absolute abundance of like queenie, empowered, royal juiciness, which is lovely. And where are we? 29 minutes. Oh, so close to being on time. So close. So we're over about a couple of minutes, but that's not too bad. So the last shadow aspect that I want to talk about, again, either as inspiration to you or, to show you how individual the priestess path can be. My last one, and this kind of links in with the first actually, was not accepting support or help. So at the beginning of the temple, so many beautiful, lovely souls reached out and said, oh, I'd love to help you run the healing live streams, or, I'd help to love you do this or whatever. I think I mentioned this at the beginning. It was that sense of, oh no, I'm the mother priestess of this. I can't be seen to be vulnerable because then people won't believe in the services that I offer. The temple won't be taken seriously if I show up here in my sick bed. Nobody will take me seriously. which is an absolute lie. Because now I can, over somewhat recently, I can begin to see that the being supported as a priestess is entirely necessary. This is, if you let it be, this can be very draining work. It's very easy to kind of get lost in the business side of things if it's your business, if this is your career. It's very easy to get lost in like the admin and the spreadsheets and the business side of things than it is like I was talking about, the dedications and the devotions and helping others, kind of why you started this path in this lifetime. And it's that because you've experienced that complete lack of support through your own, for me, it was through my own sort of beautiful nonsense, I suppose, that I can now know what it feels like to be so supported. And so, that's something that I've been practicing quite a lot lately, is just not child's pose. Oh, I can't remember the name, but the end of a yoga practice where they get you to lie kind of almost starfishing. Practicing that on my bed because I've got a very nice mattress, and really just consciously tensing or clenching any muscles or areas in my body, and then just giving into that kind of the support of the mattress underneath me, the support of the time given for me to do that, and really just sinking into the beauty of the support. So that's my slightly impromptu temple talk for you about the life of a priestess and the truth of it. I hope you all enjoyed this. I kind of have. This is quite new for me. Like I said, I'm very used to being I can't possibly be seen to be vulnerable. I'm, just through my own, like I said, nonsense, beautiful nonsense. It was very like inner child thing for me. So I've enjoyed coming to you kind of in my rawness and in my truth. So I hope you have. I really hope you have. And this is the first time in my life that I don't care. I look like I'm ill. I am ill. But I'm here. I'm serving you. I'm serving the spirit of Cornwall, and I'm serving myself. And I love that I can do all three of those things at the same time. Bloody love it. So, my lovelies, thank you so much for joining me in this temple talk. It's been an absolute pleasure. Any relevant links are either, if you're watching on IGTV, they're in the link in the bio. And on Facebook and YouTube, they should be in the description. So you've just got our website in there. I've linked the free guided meditation to meet the spirit of Cornwall. That's there. If you want to leave a donation as a thank you or a sign of appreciation for these free temple talks, then you can do that using the PayPal link. And just the doors aren't open for this training yet, but I've still got up the information for this current group of students that are training to be priestesses and priestesses of Cornwall. I've still got their kind of curriculum up there for you to look at as well, just out of interest if you wanted. So, my lovelies, I will see you next time for a talk on the inner warrior. So that's very exciting. Lots of love and absolute blessings to you for your weekend, lovelies.